The most dangerous place on earth is not a battlefield. It is not a prison. It is not a war zone surrounded by conflict and chaos. The most dangerous place on earth is a cemetery, because buried in the ground beneath your feet are businesses that were never built, books that were never written, inventions that never left the mind of the person who carried them, disciplines that were promised but never practiced, and potential that went back to the earth still wrapped in excuses. The graveyard is rich, not because people died, but because they lived undisciplined. Let me submit to you that the greatest crisis facing human beings today is not a lack of opportunity. It is not a lack of talent. It is not even a lack of time. The greatest crisis is the gap between what a person was designed to produce and what they actually deliver before they die. And that gap has a name. That gap is called undisciplined living. You don't need motivation. You need revelation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls with your mood, with the weather, with the last speech you heard, with the last comment someone made. But revelation restructures how you see. And once you see correctly, you cannot unsee. Once you understand what discipline actually is, you will stop treating it like punishment and start treating it like power. Most people think discipline is about restriction. They think discipline means you cannot eat what you want, sleep when you want, spend what you want, or do what you want. And because they believe discipline is the enemy of freedom, they run from it, celebrate escaping it, and call their avoidance of it personality. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And when the purpose of discipline is not known, the person who rejects it, abuse is the very life they were given to manage. Let me correct this misunderstanding right now at the foundation. Because if you build on the wrong belief, every floor you add takes you higher in the wrong direction. Discipline is not restriction. Discipline is the structure that makes freedom possible. Let me say that again because I want it to land. Discipline is not what limits your freedom. It is what creates the conditions in which your freedom can actually function. A river without banks is not a free river. It is a flood. It destroys everything it touches. It has no direction, no force, no power, and it wastes every drop of water it carries. But give that same water banks, give it a channel, give it a defined path. And suddenly that water becomes a force capable of powering cities, sustaining life, and carving canyons out of solid rock. The banks did not restrict the river. The banks made the river dangerous. That is what discipline does to a human being. It does not diminish you. It concentrates you. It does not cage you. It channels you. And a disciplined human being is one of the most dangerous forces on the face of this earth, because they have learned to direct their energy consistently over time toward a defined purpose. This is not about willpower alone. This is about understanding your design and aligning your daily behavior with it. Now, let me build this carefully, because I am not here to entertain you. I am here to correct you. And correction, when received properly, is the highest form of respect one person can show another. First principle I want to establish is this. Discipline is not self-punishment. It is self-governance. Every product that has ever been manufactured was designed with internal operating specifications. The manufacturer does not give you those specifications to make the product's life difficult. The manufacturer gives you those specifications because operating within them is what produces the maximum output the product was designed to deliver. If a manufacturer says this engine runs best at a certain temperature and you ignore that specification, you are not expressing freedom. You are accelerating destruction. You are moving toward a breakdown, not a breakthrough. You were manufactured. You did not design yourself. You did not choose the raw materials used to construct you. You did not write your own assignment. You came into this world with a blueprint already embedded, a set of capacities already installed, and a specific output that only your particular design can produce. Discipline is simply the daily practice of operating within your design specifications. It is self-governance, not self-punishment. The person who governs themselves will never need someone else to govern them. And the person who cannot govern themselves will always be subject to someone or something that will. Let me give you a principle that will reframe everything you think you know about what you are building. The second principle is this: the product never reveals its full potential until it is used consistently for the purpose it was designed to fulfill. Consistent use in alignment with design is what develops mastery. Inconsistent use, no matter how talented the product, produces average results at best. Think about a musical instrument, a piano. In the hands of someone who practices for 20 minutes when they feel like it, produces noise with occasional melody. That same piano, in the hands of someone who commits to structured daily practice, regardless of how they feel, produces something that moves people to tears, that fills concert halls, that outlives the person who played it. Did the piano change? No. Did the talent fundamentally change? No. What changed was the discipline applied to the gift. Discipline does not create talent. Discipline releases what talent alone cannot unlock. This is critical. Most people are waiting for a special feeling before they practice their gift. They are waiting for inspiration before they write. They are waiting for energy before they train. They are waiting for confidence before they speak. But let me submit to you that inspiration follows action. It does not precede it. Confidence is built through evidence, and evidence is built through repetition, and repetition is the language of discipline. You do not feel your way into discipline. You decide your way into it, and then you feel differently because you have become different. The third principle is one of the most misunderstood in the modern conversation about success. Comfort is the enemy of capacity. I want you to hear this. Not comfort as a reward, but comfort as a default. Comfort as a lifestyle. Comfort as the standard by which you measure whether you should continue. When comfort becomes your compass, you will always navigate away from your assignment because your assignment lives just beyond the edge of what is currently comfortable for you. Consider the process by which iron becomes steel. Iron in its natural state is already a useful material, but iron has limitations. It bends under pressure. It corrodes. It fatigues. To transform iron into steel, you must subject it to extreme heat. You must remove the impurities. You must apply precise pressure, and you must allow it to be shaped while it is in a state of discomfort. The iron does not choose this process, but the manufacturer who understands the assignment of the material applies the process anyway. And what emerges is something that can bear loads the original material could never have supported. The heat did not destroy the iron. The heat promoted it. Your seasons of pressure, your seasons of difficulty, your seasons where nothing seems to be working and everything seems to be costing you more than you calculated. Those are not punishments. Those are the forge. And the person who runs from the forge stays iron, useful, but limited. The person who understands the process submits to the fire and emerges as steel. But here is the application, because principle without application is philosophy. And I am not here to make you philosophical. I am here to make you productive. You must intentionally seek discomfort in the area of your assignment, not pain for its own sake, but challenge for growth's sake. The athlete who only trains within their comfort zone never breaks a personal record. The leader who only makes decisions they feel ready for never develops the judgment that major responsibility demands. The thinker who only reads what confirms what they already believe never has the collision with truth that produces genuine wisdom. You must engineer difficulty into your daily practice, or comfort will engineer mediocrity into your destiny. Now, I want to tell you something about the nature of seeds, because the seed is perhaps the most powerful manufacturing parable we have access to. A seed, when you hold it in your hand, looks like nothing significant. It is small. It is hard. It appears inert. Nothing about its external appearance suggests that it contains a forest. But sealed inside that small, dry, apparently insignificant shell is the complete blueprint for a tree that can grow for 100 years, produce thousands of fruits, shelter generations of life, and generate more seeds than any human being could count. All of that in something you could lose between your fingers. But here's what most people miss about the seed. The seed will never become the tree if it remains in your hand. The seed must be placed in an environment it did not choose. It must be buried. It must be covered in darkness. It must be subjected to pressure from the soil above it. It must be exposed to water it cannot control, and it must crack. The very shell that protected the potential inside the seed must be broken. And from that breaking, from that dissolution of the outer casing, life erupts. The tree does not grow in spite of the burial. It grows because of it. Let me submit to you that discipline is the soil. Your gift is the seed. And the burial is the season of practice that no one sees. The hours of preparation that receive no applause. The repetition that feels pointless. The correction that feels humiliating. And the faithfulness that feels unrewarded. Every person you admire for their visible excellence spent years buried in the soil of discipline, cracking open, breaking past the shell of who they used to be, pushing upward through resistance before they ever broke the surface. You have not been buried to be forgotten. You have been buried to grow. And the question is not whether the process is difficult. The question is, are you disciplined enough to trust the process when there is no visible evidence that it is working? The fourth principle, listen carefully. Discipline is not a one-time decision. It is a daily recommitment to a prior decision. This is where most people fail, not at the beginning. People start things all the time. January is full of beginnings. The gym is packed. The journals are fresh. The plans are written. The vision boards are mounted. But February arrives and the crowd thins. March arrives and the habits fade. And by April, most people are back to the same patterns that produced the same results that drove them to make the decision in January in the first place. The problem is not that they made a bad decision. The problem is that they believed the decision was the work. The decision is simply the gate. You pass through the gate once, but the road on the other side of that gate must be walked every single day, and walking that road daily, regardless of weather, regardless of emotion, regardless of how far you still have to go. That is discipline. A manufacturer who begins production and then stops has not produced a product. They have produced a prototype. And a prototype cannot fulfill the assignment the product was designed for. You are not here to be a prototype. You are here to be fully manufactured, fully operational, fully deployed. And that requires not one great decision, but 10,000 small ones. The decision to wake up when the alarm sounds instead of negotiating. The decision to execute the plan instead of revisiting it endlessly. The decision to do the work when no one is watching, knowing that what happens in private always eventually surfaces in public. Let me pause here and address a lie that has been circulating in the culture of personal development. The lie says, find what you love and you will never work a day in your life. Let me submit to you that this is perhaps the most dangerous piece of advice that has ever been packaged as wisdom, because it creates the expectation that if you are truly aligned with your purpose, everything will feel easy. Everything will flow. And the days when it feels hard must be signs that you are on the wrong path. This is false. This is a manufacturer's defect in the thinking of this generation. Every person who has ever built something significant loved what they were doing and still had days when they did not want to continue. Love for your assignment does not eliminate the weight of your assignment. The architect who loves design still has to sit with a problem for hours that will not resolve. The leader who loves their people still has to make decisions that will disappoint some of them. The writer who loves language still faces the blank page with nothing available. The love does not remove the difficulty. The love gives you a reason to push through the difficulty. Discipline is not fueled by how you feel about the work. Discipline is fueled by how clearly you understand the value of the work. And when you understand, truly understand, not just intellectually agree, but internally know what is at stake if you do not show up consistently, then showing up becomes non-negotiable. You do not negotiate with non-negotiables. Now, I want to address time. Because time is the one resource that no amount of discipline can replenish and no amount of wealth can purchase. Every person alive is operating with a fixed allocation of time, and that allocation is being drawn down every single moment, whether you are using it or wasting it. Time does not wait for you to become motivated. Time does not pause while you work up the courage to begin. Time moves. And the gap between who you are right now and who you were designed to be is measured in time. Time that can either be invested in becoming or surrendered to comfort. Let me give you a manufacturing principle here. Every product has a production window. There is a period during which the product can be properly formed, properly tested, properly refined. If the manufacturer waits too long, the components age, the specifications drift, and the product that finally emerges is not operating at the standard the design intended. I am not telling you there is an expiration date on your potential. There is not. But I am telling you that every season has a specific work that belongs to it. And the work that belongs to this season cannot be fully recovered in the next one. What you practice in your 20s shapes what you can execute in your 30s. What you build in your 30s determines what you can lead in your 40s. What you master in your 40s becomes the legacy you leave from your 50s and beyond. You are not just living in the present. Every present moment is simultaneously a deposit into your future and a withdrawal that is already gone. This is not meant to create anxiety. This is meant to create urgency. There is a difference between anxiety and urgency. Anxiety paralyzes. Urgency mobilizes. And I am trying to mobilize you. Now let me show you how to become dangerously disciplined. The fifth principle is this. You cannot become disciplined in the abstract. Discipline must be attached to a specific assignment. This is why willpower-based approaches to discipline almost always collapse. Willpower, when disconnected from purpose, eventually exhausts itself, because willpower is drawing from an emotional and psychological reservoir that has limits. But when your discipline is connected to your assignment, when every act of self-governance is understood as serving the purpose you were manufactured to fulfill, you draw from a reservoir that goes deeper than emotion. A soldier under discipline on a battlefield is not maintaining discipline through willpower alone. The soldier is maintaining discipline because they understand what is at stake if they break. They understand that their assignment in that moment is connected to the lives of everyone around them. And that understanding produces a level of commitment that willpower alone could never sustain. You need to know what is at stake when you fail to show up for your assignment. Not in a fear-based way, but in a clarity-based way. When you know the weight of your purpose, you treat your daily discipline as the serious work it actually is. Here is what practical assignment-based discipline looks like. You do not wake up in the morning and ask yourself how you feel. You wake up in the morning and ask yourself what is required. Feeling and requirement are two different conversations. And in a disciplined life, requirement wins. Not because you suppress how you feel, but because you have decided in advance that your assignment is more important than your mood. You made that decision before the morning came, before the resistance arrived, before the laziness presented its arguments. You decided, and now you execute. This is the sixth principle, and it is one of the most practically powerful things I can give you. Make your decisions before the moment of temptation arrives. The person who has not decided in advance will always negotiate with themselves when resistance shows up, and negotiation in those moments almost always ends in compromise. But the person who has already decided does not negotiate. They simply execute the prior decision. The decision was made when emotions were clear, when the vision was sharp, when the commitment was fresh. And that prior decision governs behavior when emotions become unclear, vision becomes foggy, and commitment feels distant. This is how the disciplined person designs their life. They front load the decisions. They determine in advance what time they will sleep, what time they will rise, what work will be done before anything else, what the boundaries of their schedule are, and what they will not compromise regardless of invitation, distraction, or rationalization. They build the structure when they are strong so that the structure can hold them when they are weak. And everyone, without exception, has moments of weakness. The undisciplined person has no structure to hold them in those moments, and they fall. The disciplined person steps back into the structure they built when they were stronger and continues. I want to tell you a story about a craftsman, because this story carries a principle that I need you to carry for the rest of your life. There was once a craftsman who was known for producing the finest furniture in his region. People came from great distances to purchase what he made. And everyone who purchased his work always asked the same question. How do you make something this precise, this durable, this beautiful? And his answer was always the same. He said, I do not begin a piece when I feel inspired. I begin every morning at the same hour. Whether the inspiration is there or not, I begin. I sharpen my tools, whether or not I have wood to cut. I study the properties of materials. Whether or not I have an immediate project, I practice joints and connections. Even when no one has commissioned me, I maintain my standards. Even when the person paying me would not notice if I dropped them. Because I am not building for the person who commissioned me, I am building for the work. I am building for the standard. I am building for the version of myself that exists 10 years from now, who will either thank me or regret me, depending on what I do today. That craftsman understood something that most people spend their entire lives missing. He understood that excellence is not an event. Excellence is a habit. And habits are built through the daily practice of discipline. When no one is watching, when there is no immediate reward, when the result is too far away to see, and when the shortcuts are close enough to take. His furniture was extraordinary, not because he was extraordinarily talented. It was extraordinary because he was extraordinarily consistent. Let me now address the area of identity, because this is where the deepest work of discipline must happen. Many people are trying to practice external discipline while holding an internal identity that contradicts the behavior they are trying to build. They are trying to wake up early while believing they are naturally lazy. They are trying to execute consistently while believing they are an impulsive person. They are trying to build financial discipline while believing they are someone who has always struggled with money. And the internal identity always wins, eventually. The behavior will bend back toward the belief. You must begin to discipline your understanding of who you are before you can sustain discipline in what you do. And your identity is not defined by your history. Your history tells you where you have been. Your design tells you what you are. And there is a difference between those two things. A lion cub raised among sheep behaves like a sheep. It does not eat what a lion eats. It does not sound like a lion sounds. It does not move like a lion moves. Not because it is not a lion, but because it has accepted a false identity based on its environment. One encounter with its true nature, one moment where the lion sees its own reflection, changes everything. Not gradually, immediately, because the identity was always there. The environment simply suppressed it. You are not undisciplined by nature. You have accepted an identity about yourself based on a history of undisciplined behavior that is suppressing your actual design. Your design includes the capacity for extraordinary self-governance. Every human being was manufactured with the internal architecture for discipline, the will, the prefrontal capacity for long-term thinking, the ability to delay gratification, the power to choose a response rather than react from an impulse. These are not abilities some people have and others do not. These are standard features of the human design. What varies is whether they have been developed or ignored. The seventh principle: your discipline must extend to what you consume, because what enters you shapes what can come out of you. A manufacturing plant that uses contaminated raw materials cannot produce a pure product, regardless of how sophisticated its machinery is. What you allow into your mind, into your emotional space, into your social environment, into your daily information diet is the raw material of your output. And if the raw material is corrupted, the output will reflect that corruption, regardless of how disciplined your schedule is. This means you must govern your inputs as seriously as you govern your actions. What are you reading? What are you listening to? Who are you spending the majority of your productive hours with? What content is shaping your language, your expectations, your beliefs about what is possible? Because all of that becomes the material your mind works with when it is trying to build. A builder given inferior materials cannot produce superior structures, no matter how great their skill. You are the builder, and you are also the one responsible for the quality of the materials on the site. Govern your inputs, or your inputs will govern you. Now, I need to speak directly to the person who has been disciplined in the past, who built something, who achieved something, and who then allowed the success of that season to become the ceiling of the next one. Let me submit to you that your last success may be the very thing limiting your future success. When it is not governed by continued discipline, produces comfort. And comfort, as we have already established, is the enemy of capacity. Many people who achieved something significant made the mistake of believing that the discipline that produced the achievement could now be relaxed because the achievement had arrived. But achievement is not the destination. Achievement is a waypoint. It is evidence that the principles are working. It is proof that the system is functioning. But it is not the place where you set down your tools and retire from the process. Every level of achievement reveals the next level of assignment. And the next level of assignment always demands a new level of discipline. The discipline that got you here will not carry you there. You must be willing to be a beginner again at a higher level. You must be willing to submit yourself to the discomfort of growth, even when the comfort of your current achievement is available and justified. This requires a particular kind of humility, and it is the kind of humility that strong people often find hardest to practice. It is the humility of saying, what I know is less than what I need to know. What I have built is less than what I was designed to build. And what I have become is less than what is possible. That humility is not self-deprecation. It is not an attack on your worth. It is an honest assessment of the gap between your current reality and the fullness of your design. And closing that gap is the lifelong work of the disciplined person. Let me tell you about a tree in the forest, a particular kind of tree that grows in environments where the wind is severe. Scientists who studied these trees discovered something remarkable. The trees that grew in the most wind-exposed areas developed what is called reaction wood. Reaction wood is denser, stronger, and more structurally complex than the wood of trees that grew in sheltered conditions. The wind, which appeared to be a threat, was actually triggering the tree to produce its strongest material. The tree, in responding to the repeated stress of the wind, was building a structural capacity that a sheltered tree would never develop, not because the sheltered tree lacked the potential, but because it lacked the stimulus that activates it. Every season of difficulty you have faced, every environment that has pressed against you, every relationship that required more from you than you thought you had, every project that collapsed and forced you to rebuild was triggering the development of reaction wood in your character. The question is not whether the wind was real and strong, and at times terrifying. The question is, what did you do with it? The tree does not ask whether it should respond to the wind. It responds, and in responding, it becomes stronger than any tree in a sheltered place could ever be. You have been in the wind. Most of you have been in severe wind, and the reaction wood has been building. But you must now discipline yourself to use it. Strength that is not deployed is still potential, and potential that returns to the earth unused is the tragedy of the cemetery. Deploy what the pressure built in you. Deploy it consistently. Deploy it toward your assignment. And do not compare the size of your deployment to anyone else's. Your assignment is yours. The blueprint that was written for your life was not written for anyone else's life. And the only person you are in competition with is the version of yourself that your design intended. This is the activation. This is where the understanding must convert into action. Beginning today, you must establish what I will call your non-negotiable core. This is the minimum daily expression of your assignment that you will protect regardless of schedule, regardless of demand, regardless of disruption. Not the maximum you would do on a perfect day, the minimum you will do on your worst day. Because the minimum, when it is non-negotiable, becomes a floor. And a floor cannot be fallen through. You need a floor. You need a daily baseline of discipline that is so embedded in your structure, and that missing it would feel like a violation of who you are, not just of what you plan to do. For the writer, the non-negotiable core might be 500 words every day, regardless of how uninspired they feel. For the builder, it might be 1 hour of strategic thinking before the day's operations begin. For the person rebuilding their health, it might be 30 minutes of physical discipline. Regardless of how tired the previous day made them, the specifics are yours to determine. But the principle is not negotiable. You must identify it. You must commit to it. And you must protect it as though it is a matter of identity. Because it is. What you do consistently is who you are, not who you say you are, not who you plan to become, who you are. The second action, within the next 48 hours, you must identify the single greatest area of undiscipline in your life, not a list. One thing, the one area where your inconsistency is most directly costing you the future you are designed for. And you must design a specific structural response to that area. Not a motivational response, not a resolution, a structure. Structures exist so that decisions do not have to be remade every time the situation arises. A budget is a structure, so you do not have to decide in every spending moment whether to save or spend. A sleep schedule is a structure, so you do not have to negotiate with yourself every night about when to rest. Design a structure for your greatest area of undiscipline, and then put that structure in your environment, where your environment enforces it, rather than you having to fight for it. The third action, you must build an accountability architecture. Not accountability for motivation, accountability for accuracy. The function of accountability is not to cheer you on. It is to tell you the truth about whether your behavior matches your stated commitment. Find one person whose judgment you respect, whose own discipline you can observe, and whose honesty you trust even when it is uncomfortable. Share your non-negotiable core with them. Share your structural response to your greatest area of undiscipline and ask them to tell you the truth about what they observe, not what they think you want to hear. Let me now speak prophetically, not religiously, but with the authority that comes from understanding principle at a deep level. You were not made to maintain. You were made to multiply. Everything about your design points toward increase, toward expansion, toward a progressively fuller expression of the capacity that was sealed inside you at the moment of your creation. Maintenance is the language of fear. Multiplication is the language of purpose. And discipline is the daily practice that converts the language of purpose from declaration into demonstration. The pain you have been through was not a detour from your design. It was the forge. The years that felt wasted were the years the soil was being prepared. The relationships that corrected you, even when the correction felt like rejection, were calibrating your character for the weight of what you are about to carry. The skills you built in obscurity, while no one was watching, while no platform was present, while no recognition was available. Those skills are the exact skills that your assignment requires. Nothing in your history was wasted. It was all preparation. The question is whether you have the discipline to step into the assignment for which all of that preparation was designed. You have been asking the wrong questions. You have been asking, when will things get easier? And the answer is that the right things should not get easier. They should get more familiar, more natural, more instinctive, but not easier, because each new level of assignment brings its own new weight. The question to ask is not when will this get easier. The question is, am I becoming the person capable of carrying the next level of weight? Because your assignment will not scale down to meet your current capacity. You must scale up to meet the demands of your assignment. And scaling up is the work of discipline, daily, consistent, non-negotiable discipline. Let me address the person who has started and stopped, who has made the resolution and broken it, who has read the books, attended the conferences, made the commitments, and is now sitting in the same place, carrying the same patterns, facing the same gaps. You are not here because you are fundamentally broken. You are here because you have not yet built a system that is stronger than your moods. And that is a design problem, not a character problem. Fix the design, and the behavior will follow. Build the structure, and the discipline will have somewhere to live. Stop trying to be more motivated and start building better systems. Because motivation, as we have established, is weather. Systems are architecture, and you need to live in architecture, not in weather. The graveyard does not have to be your outcome. What is inside you can come out. What was sealed in you at your beginning can be fully expressed before your end. But it will require that you stop living by the lowest standard you can get away with and start living by the highest standard your design demands. This is the closing charge. And I am giving it to you not as an emotional crescendo, but as a final set of calibration points. A checkpoint system for the disciplined life. Every morning, before you engage with any external demand, you must engage with your assignment. Not your inbox, not your phone, not the noise of other people's agendas. Your assignment. 10 minutes of clarity. Rehearsing what today's discipline is for and what it is building toward. 10 minutes every morning before the world comes in. Because whoever has access to your first attention sets the agenda of your day. Do not surrender your first attention. Every week, you must conduct an honest audit, not a comparison against other people. An audit against your own commitments. What did I say I would do? What did I actually do? Where was the gap? And what was the real reason for the gap? Not the excuse, the reason. This weekly audit is not punishment, it is navigation. A ship that does not check its position regularly drifts and drift over time. Can move you miles from where you intended to be. Check your position, correct your course, move forward. Every month, you must evaluate whether your disciplines are producing the compounding effect they are designed to produce. Discipline, like investment, compounds over time. You should be able to look back over 30 days and see measurable difference. Not dramatic transformation, but measurable progress. If after 30 days of consistent discipline you can see no movement, it does not mean the principle is failing. It means the discipline is not as consistent as you believed, or the application is not as aligned with your design as it needs to be. Investigate, adjust, and continue. Every quarter, review your assignment, not your tasks, your assignment. The larger purpose that your daily discipline is serving. Reconnect to why, because the why is the fuel of the long haul. Short-term discipline can be sustained by willpower, but the discipline of a lifetime requires something deeper. It requires a why that is larger than your comfort, larger than your fear, larger than your current results. Review your why quarterly and let that reconnection refuel the fire. You are not a machine that runs on automatic. You are a designed being with the capacity for conscious self-governance and the responsibility to deploy that capacity fully in service of the assignment for which you were made. Discipline is not the price of success. Discipline is the language of the fully deployed human being. And when you speak that language consistently, the world responds to you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. And changed people create changed realities. Stop waiting for permission to become fully who you were designed to be. The permission was written into your design at the moment you were made. The assignment was written. The capacity was installed. The blueprint exists. What has been missing is the daily decision to honor it through the consistent practice of disciplined living. The cemetery is full of the undisciplined. Make a different choice. Not once, every day, make a different choice. Wake up and choose the assignment over the comfort. Sit down and choose the work over the distraction. Stand up and choose the standard over the shortcut. Repeat that daily, without negotiation, without exception, without apology. What you are building is not just a better version of a routine. You are building a version of yourself that your design always intended to exist. You are closing the gap between the potential you were born with and the product you deliver before you die. That is the work. That is the only work that matters. And it begins not at the next season, not on the next significant date, not when conditions are better, not when you feel more ready. It begins now with the next decision. In the next moment, which is this one, be original, not a copy. Your discipline must express your design, not someone else's model. Die empty. Let everything that was placed inside you come out before you leave. Die having produced the full weight of your assignment, not a fraction of it, not a prototype. The full product, fully deployed, fully expressed, fully given. The time is now.